Ridin'SoCal, a talk show for all motorcyclists. Your host is Tom Hicks, the owner and founder of Southern California Motorcycles in Brea, California. Tom has a long history in the industry as a technician, racer, product research engineer, press relations specialist, and more. Ridin'SoCal will cover everything from writing to events to training and, of course, motorcycles. You can listen to the show on Podbean at www.ridin'socal.podbean.com or find us on iTunes. So welcome to Ridin'SoCal, the talk show for all motorcyclists. And now, here's Tom.
Hello, everyone. Well, another beautiful week in Southern California, and the weather is perfect for riding. And I'm Tom Hicks. I'm your host of Ridin'SoCal. But Courtney is, I guess you would say, our brightest upcoming racing star, period, as far as we feel around here. So, Courtney, introduce everybody, please.
Right beside me is my dad, who's been helping me throughout my racing all these years. Wally, who was previously on my Ford Focus Midget and has been racing for many years. And Sammy Tanner, who's been racing motorcycles for many years. And he's definitely helped me throughout my career. And he's the one that put this all together for us today. And Jerome, who owns my 2016 Midget. So he's been helping me out a lot this year,
and a guest from the shadows.
Yeah, Alan Budnick came in and decided to chime in.
Well, that's great. Courtney, you pretty much started in motorcycles, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Being that this is Ridin'SoCal and it is about motorcycles, tell us a little bit about your motorcycling background.
It all started at 2 years old when I learned how to ride my XR50 with no training wheels. And it all kind of went from there. I rode pocket bikes, and we even did some supermoto when I was really little. And then we kind of quit that and we got into go-karts and quarter midgets. And then in 2012 we started racing speedway motorcycles in the 150 division. And then we went to 250s, and I rode speedway for a few years. And then we just kind of quit after that, and we sold all my bikes last year.
Well, the way that your growth in auto racing is exponential, I can understand that, because as much as we all love motorcycles, the money's in the car. And probably, now, as far as fun factor, tell us a little bit about the fun factor. I mean, I know you had fun riding Speedway. How's the cars versus just enjoying what you're doing?
The Speedway races, they were a lot of fun, and they were the fun. Ooh, once the
fun factor.
Way out of my, wait, fun for cars or just
motorcycles? Well, kind of a comparison.
Both.
Tell us about, because, you had a lot of fun riding motorcycles. But how is the cars? Is the cars fun, or is it more like all work?
No, the cars are a lot of fun. I fortunately have guys that are around here helping me work on the cars, so I don't do much of that, but I mainly just drive the car. But in the car, it's the funnest thing that I've ever experienced, is definitely just racing against other guys, and the competitiveness is just, it's a lot of fun.
And I'm sure you're just busting male egos all over the place.
Yeah.
How old are you now?
I'm 15.
15 years old, and you're beating people that have been racing forever, and young guys. Yeah, outstanding. And your father, throughout my experience in knowing professional racers, even world champions, one of the things that really was important was the family backing. What's it like?
Well, I always knew that I wanted my son or my daughter racing when I had a child, and so fortunately Courtney did have the desire to do it, so we've kind of run with it.
Wow. And you've got a son also. He just didn't show the interest?
Well, basically Courtney's been my son that I didn't have, and so she's pretty much carried it out for me.
Oh, it's so special. I just I've gotten to know you guys and been with you a few times, and just the relationship and everything is special. But let's go on around the table about what everyone's bringing to the party.
Well, Jack, I've known Jack for a long time, and when Courtney was really little, he cornered me at Orange Show at one of my racing schools and said, one of these days I want to have Courtney drive your stuff. And and I said, well, that'd be great. There's a million people that say that stuff and it never happens. And lo and behold, he wanted her to run my stuff. I have a Ford Focus Midgets, which is it's an entry level hobby type racing, and so she came out and did one of my schools at Sean McConnell Speedway Bike Track, because I use a Speedway bike track for basic training for cars on
Wow.
Because
That's a little
there's
track.
no straight away. You use a lot of stagger. You learn to steer with the throttle, because
Sure.
midget and sprint cars you steer with the throttle more than the steering wheel almost. And she was excellent from the first day. Of course, she disappointed Jack. Jack wanted her to be as fast as I was the first day, but that didn't
Well,
I always put the bar a little bit
proud of his
high.
girl.
But anyway, but she was excellent from the get-go. And the great thing about Courtney is that she's a great student. She listens to what you say, and then not only listens, but she attempts to put it in practice, and usually does it every time. And so, that makes, if you're a coach, that makes you look like a really good coach. Well,
Oh,
you're
sure.
not really that good a coach. It's the student that's making you look good.
Oh, outstanding.
I think we have the best coach, Wally.
But nonetheless, Courtney listens, and she uses her head, and she drives. The very first race she ever did for me, she tried to drive through the back of a guy, and I told her, I said, no, that's not how we're going to race.
But he wouldn't get out of the way.
She said that before. But you got to find a way around them. Driving through them doesn't work very well, because usually you tear up your stuff too, and then you've compromised the car, and so then you're not doing very well. So, and not to mention that she's not going to be able to get out of the car and defend herself very well. So,
Don't.
she wants to be an IndyCar racer, so she
Right, of
doesn't
course.
need to learn to drive like stock car guys,
Right.
where they just drill each other. That's
Sure.
the beauty of open wheel racing, because you can't really afford to do that, because you catch a wheel and you
And
flip
then you're done, right?
Right, and so, but she's been, she's smooth, she's listens, she's fast, she's so far as I can tell, she's pretty intelligent. So, she's marketable, and she has all the tools that you need to go to an Indy or anywhere she wants to go.
Well, Courtney, you're racing sprint cars now, for God's sakes. Those, my brother, who was racing midgets, and then he had bought a sprint car. He never really raced the sprint car to my knowledge, but I went and watched the sprint cars a few times, and to me, it's the most violent form of mechanized racing I've ever experienced, ever seen. Sprint cars, because they're so much horsepower, and they will just accelerate so fast. That's got to be just fascinating for you.
Yeah, the way they drive is really they're almost like a limousine, as Wally always says, because they're very slow cars and they're very heavy, but they also got a lot of power to go with it, and so they're actually a lot of fun to drive.
Slow cars. They're very
Yeah.
slow cars. What do you mean?
Well, no. What was it? Slow.
Slow.
Yeah, slow as in
reacting.
slow reacting. They're not slow at all in any means, but the power to weight ratio really is phenomenal. So.
They're not quick reacting so much.
Yeah, no, not compared to a midget where they're very small and
Sure, short
the
wheelbase.
Yeah.
Wow. It's just absolutely amazing. I'm so excited for you, because just watching the short time that I have, Sammy Tanner, AMA Hall of Famer, racing motorcycles, just the flying flea. How'd obviously you got involved with this. Tell us about that.
Well, I've been around the racing game since 1954, watching A.J. Foyt drive stock cars. And so he lived only a block and a half from me. In fact, I found out later that he raced motorcycles for 3 years. And so, but I'd like to say a little bit about going to the motorcycle races, the Speedway motorcycle races, which was the Gumball Rally. And it was put on by a multi-time world Speedway champion, Billy Hamill. And I'm sitting in the stands, and I'm sitting next to Jack and Courtney, and she's about 5 or 6 years old. And I struck up a conversation with her, and she...
Not you. You don't strike up conversations.
I'm kind of quiet, But I started talking to her, and she really knew about the motorcycles and the riders, both speedway, flat track, motocross, you name it. She knew all about it. And then we got into conversation about the race cars, and then she knew all about the race cars, the types, the drivers, and I'm going 5, 6 years old, knows all this. Fast forward till she was 10 years old, and I met Billy Hamill's Speedway motorcycle racing school, and here is her and Jack are there with bikes. She's going to start racing Speedway. Speedway is probably the most difficult type of racing there is. There are a lot of people that ride motorcycles say, "Oh no, I'm not sure about that." But if it was easier, there would be Speedway racing all over the United States, where instead of just little areas. And she picked right up on that thing. At 150cc was not at first. She wobbled around, and then she started winning races. And then Dad put her on a 200cc bike. This is her first year. I can't even ride one of the things. I mean, I can wobble around, but not very fast. And she picked it right up to the point that her last 5 races, she won 3 main events in 2 seconds, and that was at 3 different racetracks with all different size, dirt, and everything. Mm-hmm. And Billy Hamill canceled Billy Hamill was teaching these boys how to become world champions, and she's out there pretty dicing around with them. And so anyway, the class got canceled. Not sure why, but then she's back to 150s and then jumps to 250. And she's only, wasn't even 5 foot tall. And she would, if she were going really fast, if she fell down, she just picked the bike right back up, jumped back on, and kept going. And so anyway, the early days just really impressed me. And then at age 12, she's at racing his car at Ventura on the 5th Mile racetrack, the same ones where the sprint cars actually race out. And she's going up. Now, his daughter races midgets and been racing a long time. She was beating Courtney on a regular basis, but Courtney was right there, just kind of pushing. I think she finally got a chance to win one out there. And so this year, now, she started running the sprint car first at age 14 in what they call a young gun class. And that's a 750 horsepower sprint car. And the Indy cars, what I've heard is that their engines have about 600 horsepower, to give you a comparison. And she's doing really well. She won main events in the first year. There was 7 races that she drove in. She's crashed it.
Yeah, the fact that she did fast, that you won, she did at 15 years old, you've won main events with a sprint car. My respect is off the scale. It went past red line. It's just wow.
Was that 14 that you?
Yeah, 14. It was 14. My first ever win.
Wow.
She almost won the whole event. If they didn't have enough of the young guns, they put them in behind the 40-year plus class. Oh, now they've been racing for 20 years. She's going to be up against. And she started in the 7th row, which was inside back, and so 13th position, worked herself up to 2nd place, and she's right behind first place, and I'm just going, there's a possibility she could win this race.
Now, you're talking first place of all of
the
them.
main event against everybody.
See, I hear all the stories.
Yeah.
Sammy tells me.
Yeah.
This is a senior sprint race that she's in.
Right.
Yeah. It wasn't the USAC guys.
Right.
What was USAC?
Well, no, but I mean, it was a senior sprint race that she was in that
Sure.
night. But there were 5 or 6 of those guys that are champions when they were younger guys.
Exactly,
So, yeah.
and that's what the point is. It's not, just because they're older doesn't mean they've gotten particularly that much slower. And for her to be up there and dicing with them, or even beating them, oh my God!
No,
Well, her
she beat a bunch of them.
teammate was behind her, and then they got the yellow flag, and they restarted the race. Her teammate got on the inside on the restart, and so that put her from 2nd to 3rd. But that's front row when the race is over with, and people come down and get autographs, and
Sure.
photographs are made and everything, and so and then this year, I tell you, to have to be able to go out and see her race on a half-mile dirt in a sprint car, it's really something.
Well, I know I'm going to come
see
out.
her.
I've
I've yet to
already
see
scheduled
her
that.
drive his guy's midget, and I think he should be talking about her now.
Now,
This time.
okay, your midget.
Oh, that was
Okay.
slick.
Two-time,
There's a segue, Sammy.
two-time Western Division's midget champion, retired, so he knows what he's doing.
And your name for everyone.
Jerome Rodella,
There we go.
and I came from the school Wally. I don't know, when did I start? Maybe 15 years ago or something. And so Wally's been there from day one of my little career, and it was good. We had a good run. And I don't know, I just felt like I needed to be on the other side of the fence and just own the cars.
Sure.
And I kind of enjoyed that a little more than racing. And so it's, I don't know. It's
Well,
kinda
having
good.
that background, no one can pull anything
Yeah,
over
you know,
on
I was
that.
a driver before I was an owner, you know, so setting the cars up, I kind of could relate to what she's saying, you know, in order to jive with, you know, getting the car set up. And so it's fun. It's a challenge to build the cars as best you can and you know, compete against all the
Sure.
other owners. And if we didn't win, well, it's her fault.
Now, Courtney, you're racing midgets and sprints this year?
Yeah, this year we're running a Formula Mazda on road racing. We're running a 360 sprint car, and we're running the USAC West Coast Midgets.
Wow.
She's already set records at the racetrack
Yes.
in this open wheel car.
And that's asphalt on the open wheel?
Yeah, road course.
Right, yeah. Wow.
She's the youngest SCCA road racing champion, or racer, I mean, in the novice class at age 14. That's the youngest in
Now,
their
is there
history of racing.
Is there an age limit when you start stepping up into an Indy car?
Yeah, there's an age limit to race Indy Lights, IndyCar, even the Pro Mazda series, and actually there's even age limits pretty much everywhere you go. Midgets, sprint cars,
Really?
yeah.
And so, what's the age limit for your next step?
My next step would be probably the F2000 series, and you got to be 15 years old to race that. So
Now, F2000, explain that for everyone.
that's a Formula 2000 car, and he probably knows more about them than I do.
Jack,
So he
Tell us
should-
about an F2000.
Well, Formula Ford 2000 originated in England in the late 70s. So it's a series and a class that's run worldwide. It's not new for this country. They've been racing it in this country since the early 80s.
And what do the cars look like? What are we trying to do?
They're just scaled down, open wheel, single seat Formula cars.
Really? So
So
they look like a
small-
Formula One car, but smaller.
Exactly.
Wow.
You know, that's probably our next stepping stone as far as road racing goes. We still have a little bit to learn with Jerome's Midgets. We'd like to win a few races in that class before we leave it.
Because with the midgets, you're racing asphalt and you're racing dirt, right?
Yeah. And so that may go into at least one more full year of midget racing. There's always stuff to learn in sprint cars. It takes many years to master any of these classes.
Oh, of course.
And so the thing is, when you're developing a young driver, you may not be able to wait around to win championships at every single
Sure.
level. So obviously we have to get Courtney competent at every level before we move on to the next level.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that because I've experienced that in my life. Your ability to drive so many different cars, so many different styles of racing. I came up in motorcycling as a product research engineer for Honda, and I had to race and ride all the different bikes from the different manufacturers. And then, you know, later on in life, I become a formation pilot, and I had to fly with all kinds of different planes. You don't have the same plane, so you got to fly with what's called dissimilar aircraft. And that fact, both of those made me better. And I can see that your background and what you're doing will make you a better racer when you decide, or when you finally set into that one style that you're going to stay with to win a championship. Oh, I can absolutely see that.
From my experience, just most of the drivers that I've worked with that I thought really had the ultimate talent have background in both dirt, pavement, some motorcycle background, some karting background, and all that complements each other. And so really, Courtney being a 15-year-old racer, we don't really know where her destination is yet. But I want her to be ready for whatever doors open up for her to be ready to, and we've even done some off-road racing. So we've got that in her background also.
Well, I imagine she's got a couple ideas.
Yeah.
Obviously, Indy.
Yeah, our main goal would be race Indy cars, but I wouldn't single out anything because there's all these options open still, and so I'm still young, and so like.
Well, as Sammy brought it over, Max Verstappen, 19-year-old racing Formula One. I mean, that has to be considered the top racing in the world for four-wheel.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And Indy, like IndyCar's number 2 type of thing.
Yeah, I think all around for USA, I think IndyCar, NASCAR even is just pretty much the best. But I mean, overall throughout the whole world, I think Formula One would probably be the top step for everything.
Sure. Well, either way, you can't discount NASCAR or Indy.
Yeah.
I mean, the Indy cars. Now, the Indy cars race regular road tracks too, like they race Sonoma. Okay. Where else do they race?
Long Beach.
Oh, Long Beach, the Long Beach Grand Prix, of course.
Typically, Indy cars have, they have what they call short ovals, long ovals, road courses on both permanent road courses and what they call temporary courses like Long Beach.
Right.
And so there's like 4 fairly different disciplines all within the one series. All take different talents and skill sets and quite a bit of equipment change for any of the 4 styles of racing that IndyCar does.
Well, you know what's really brilliant about what's happening with you is you guys are having fun. It really seems that every time I talk to you, every time I talk to anybody associated with you, you're having fun, but you're doing this. You're winning races, you're training, you're learning, and that team is one thing I came to value very much. I was an endurance motorcycle racer. Your team, it's got to be. It's got to be 100%. Everybody's got to be working like clockwork. And you don't have any races where you pit, do you?
Not currently.
Not currently. Yeah, because that's when the team,
Shine.
really can shine. But still, just the fact that they can prepare a car for you, your team can prepare the car. And so, just a little bit off, because you are so young. How's the school? How do you put all this together?
I still go to public school. I go to a normal school, and so it's tough to keep up with work. But I managed to keep a 4.0 GPA, so that's
Straight A. Oh my God! Wow. Yeah, you got a real life ahead of you, little one.
One thing that wasn't mentioned, she went to Vegas at the SEMA show last year, and she was Robbie Gordon has that's type of a series, off-road truck series that
Sure.
he has, and so when she went up there, I said, now this is not about going fast, it's not about passing people, it's not about about winning, it's about not crashing. And she's listening on the phone, and so first race she spins it out.
Wow! So you did
And the second race, now he went up there. Jerome went up there with her, and coaching here. And so the next thing she does, she's racing against Robbie. Robbie's in
Really?
Robbie, I think, is in 4th place if I remember right. And anyways, she's trying to pass Robbie, and anyway,
You're trying to pass
flips
Robbie
it over.
Gordon.
Flips it over on the side.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Talk about having fun. She knows how to have fun.
Oh,
She believes in racing.
Well, you know what? This is a perfect time for us to take a break. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be back with Courtney and everyone else here in just a minute. We're back. I'm Tom Hicks, and this is Ridin'SoCal, and here with Courtney Crone and her entourage, and Sammy Tanner, of course. We were just talking a little bit about how everything gets put together for Courtney. And, for instance, Wally, your racing school. What's the name of the racing school, Wally?
It was Wally Pancratz Racing School.
Wally
Pancratz
Racing School.
Yeah.
And you're located?
Well, I just out of the house, but my classes are at Ventura.
At Ventura,
and
okay.
At Irwindale on some pavement. If when on Thursday nights you can access the Irwindale Oval, so people come out and run some laps. I mean, a lot of people come and do it just for the experience of driving a Midget.
Right.
And then there's other people like Courtney that are serious about
Sure.
wanting to become a race car driver.
So let's say myself or one of our viewers wanted to come out and try a Midget. What do we do? What's
Just call me.
How would one call you? Give us a phone number.
714-749-4817.
Okay.
And then when I have enough people to be able to rent the racetrack, for instance, then we put together a day and people come out, and I have people that'll have done as many as 200 laps, and they're the only person all day.
Oh, good Lord.
But generally speaking, most people do like 2 sessions, and they're just wanting to see what it's like to run a car, and then sometimes that piques their interest. I ruined one guy's life. He ended up buying a car.
Yeah, that's why you got a person like that, or myself, for instance. I got to really watch what I try, because when I jump into something, I go both feet first, go overboard.
The interesting thing is when our show was open in San Bernardino, I had the pavement schools there, and they would do 200 laps, and the kids, the younger kids, they couldn't do 200 laps. I mean, it's not 200 laps in a row, it's 200 lap segments. But about the 10th one, their heads like this, and they couldn't finish. And like Frank Hawley and most people that have a school, once you've paid me the money, you don't get it back.
Sure.
I said, hey, the father, I said, he can't do the last session. You want to do it? And most of them would fit in the car, and they're, no, I'll do that. Well, the kids love that, because the father was always on you should be able to go faster than that, son. I can't believe this and this. Then they'd get in the car, and they'd be way slower than the kid. And then, at that point, he can't really yell at the kid later in his career because, hey, Dad, remember.
He tried it.
Well, do you have a website?
No, I'm old school.
That's all right.
It's all word of mouth.
Phone number one more time for you.
714-749-4817.
Okay. All right.
And some of my students, Alex Bowman, who ran 3 years in Cup, and I think he's running the Xfinity series. I always want to call it what it was sponsored 2 or 3 years ago. And Cole Custer, who's running NASCAR trucks now, and Michael Lewis, who's a Porsche factory driver now, Steve Lewis's son from PRI. And they were my students. Alan Budnick was one of my students, if you can believe he can fit in a car. And, I've had some really good students, and it's not because of me, but you're just another little, piece of the puzzle as they're going up.
Sure. Sammy, have you done it?
Well, Wally tried to get me in one of those little. That's a full-size midget, but he tried to get me to make some laps, and I turned it down. It was at the Pirate Speedway in San Bernardino. And the first time I'd seen Courtney, she went around the racetrack just pretty much the way you'd expect a brand new person making laps. And then about halfway through the season, pretty soon she's lapping pretty good. Well, Wally had asked me if I'd wanted to drive a car a couple of times, and I said, well, that was a quarter mile. I don't want to go around this little thing.
Listen to you.
So then the track is going to be closing down. I'm just going, gee, maybe I should have went out and made a few laps. And so I put the helmet in the car in the trunk. Now, she doesn't know this. And so I get to the track, and I'm on the outside of the gate, and she's making laps. And I'm just going, wow.
You're not.
This is not the Courtney I've seen before. And so I'm down in the infield, and there's a tent, and she's sitting in a chair, and I'm kind of standing up. She said, why don't you go out there and make a lap? And I said, no, I don't think so. And she said, I'll give you $10. And I said, no, I don't think so. And there's another guy sitting next to her listening to all this, and so I told her, I said, well, what it is, you want me to go out there and make laps so you can tell everybody that you're going 3 seconds a lap faster.
Faster than Sammy Tanner. Yep. She's not a dumb girl.
Oh, if you'd have seen her going around that racetrack, I'm telling you, I was real impressed. She went 7 years in the quarter midgets, and that's something that A.J. Foyt did.
Now, the quarter midgets use the 750 motorcycle engines? Is that it? Or
No.
What are the quarter midgets?
Well, there's many classes of quarter midgets.
Okay.
They start off, believe it or not, with a restricted Briggs & Stratton or restricted Honda motor.
Sure.
And they have as little as 3 horsepower. And then the upper classes have as many as maybe 25 horsepower.
Oh, okay.
So kids do quarter midgets from age 5 to 15. Courtney's career went from 4.5 before she was actually eligible to have a license. through, I think, 11. At that point, she was already in a 25 horsepower quarter midget, and she'd won several championships in that car. And so I felt, well, we've got to do something else. And I knew that midgets were in our future. She actually started training with Wally when she was 11. Wow. And so, but we also, I guess I left a little bit out here. No, she started training with Wally when she was 13, right? 13.
12.
13.
Got to be
12.
careful because she had to be 12 to
I better
race.
cut this. I can't remember the year she starts and stuff. But anyway,
I don't either.
I know she raced her last quarter midget race at 11, right? And at that point, you were racing Speedway motorcycles also. And so we did Speedway kind of in an interim for several years before we got started with Wally.
Chris Agajanian was even one of the sponsors of the race car and the motorcycle.
So anyway,
Yeah.
but I've always cross-trained Courtney. We've
Sure.
always done multiple disciplines at the same time. That's why right now we're currently involved with 3 forms of racing.
And that has to be responsible for part of how good she actually is now, because there's no two ways about it. You know, not to get a big head, you know you're good. And people like you don't come along just every day.
And Mother has her work out all the time, so physically she's in shape. Like when you do a 20-lap race at Paris in a sprint car, that's very tiring.
Oh, no
And,
doubt.
I mean, it's hard. It's rough. I mean, with that much horsepower, and even though you have power steering, it's still really something. And you almost have to. I would love to just have the whole audience just go out and watch her ride, go around Paris.
Well,
that sprint
I'd
car.
love to get the audience to go out and just see the midgets, for instance. Midgets are just fantastic to watch, and the battles, and then of course the sprint cars are the big dogs. But just watching midgets and the way as they're high horsepower, they're loud, they're fast, they're wheel to wheel racing. In fact, you just took your first podium in a midget.
Yeah, this past weekend we took our first podium. I got 3rd out at Madeira for the Gearhart Classic, and it was a fun race.
Now you're racing against. Now, was this in a beginner, intermediate?
No, it
pro?
was a full midget race.
Wow.
Yeah.
$71,000 engine has to be rebuilt every 4 races.
That's pro. There's no doubt about it.
54. It's 54,000.
Is it 54?
That came
He
out
told
of
me. I get my information from this guy right there.
Which is obscene in itself.
That is a lot of money.
No,
Well,
They
someone
really
told
do.
me that. And it had
They go a lot longer than 4 races, too.
Yeah.
Even airplane engines, you get a little airplane, it doesn't cost that much.
Jesus.
Well, but
Chris
airplane
Agajanian.
engines- the thing about a midget engine, they're more expensive than a sprint car motor, even though they only have half the cylinders. But they are so highly tuned that they have
They're
to
really
put a lot
stretched.
of labor in them
Okay.
to get the things to live, to make 400 horsepower out of 160 cubic inches.
Wow.
The car only weighs 900
And that's
pounds.
naturally aspirated, right? That's not
Yeah.
turbocharged.
No, it's fuel injected.
There's been a midget race going on in Southern California for a long time, and it was called Turkey Night. And every Thanksgiving, they have a big race, and so it used to be 150 laps, and it got down to 100, and now because Agajanians have been promoting, and the Agajanian families, well, in fact, their driver won the Indy 500 this year, and so it's going to be a 98-lap event, because that was his racing number. Well, at Paris, because the Toyota engine is basically the superior engine right now, and people don't have the money to really back it the way that they should. So Chris Agajanian has moved Turkey Night to be at the racetrack in Ventura, and so I was going, no, I want to see it on the half mile. And I went, no, I want a lot of drivers there, because entries at the Chili Bowl, which is in Oklahoma, they had over 300 and something. I think it's 331 entries.
Entries?
Was that 300?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the prize money, there was 18,000 people there. You can't buy a ticket years in advance. And Wally goes back there with his daughter racing. He's went down there a lot of times, and so everyone's preparing her for the Chili Bowl race coming up. And I think she'll be ready for the Chili Bowl. I think she'll be ready.
Now, is this a quarter-mile track? Or?
It's a small track, but
It's less than a fifth mile.
Oh, okay.
It's an indoor.
Oh,
arena.
okay, okay.
And it's worth it to go back just to look at the building, because they have a 5th mile, or a little smaller than a 5th mile racetrack that seats 10,000 people, and then behind the racetrack, under the same roof, all the trailers for 300 people are in the building.
It's like
Someone
the
said
largest-
18,000
It's the
paid
largest
admission.
freestanding building in the world, supposedly, or something.
It doesn't have it. Doesn't.
There's no pillars. And
There's
Really?
It's all cantilever with cables. There's no pillars in the.
That's
Really?
really
It has
huge.
flying
Worldwide.
buttresses.
People come from all over the world to enter that car.
To Ventura.
And Rico,
No, to the Chili
this
Bowl.
is at the
Oh.
Chili Bowl. Rico,
The Chili Bowl's in
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Tulsa, Oklahoma, won it back to back. And so then Rico's quite a person. After he wins the race, he gets it up on the rear wheel. He does a wheelie and spins it around and around, waving at the crowd while he does it. So he's pretty
In a car.
in a midget, full size
Yeah.
midget. This is what she's going to be competing in.
Yeah, unfortunately, they run it every January, so I won't be old enough this Chili Bowl. So hopefully next year,
He can't go. Got to be 16.
I'm
She
15.
can do it.
Hyped that up pretty good.
Oh, see, I was all ready to go.
Right.
And I was on the phone earlier this week trying to pull some strings, and it wasn't going
Yeah,
anywhere.
they won't let you.
So you
Because if one
circumvented.
person pulls the string, then they're going to have.
Sure,
you
sure.
know,
Set
and there
precedents. Okay.
You know, Jeff Gordon is the reason people like Courtney are getting these opportunities. And Courtney deserves the opportunity because she is special. I've been around a long time and I've seen a lot of race car drivers. And she is one of those drivers that has all that natural talent and ability and drive. And Jeff Gordon was that way. Casey Kane was that way.
Larson.
Tony Stewart was that way. Troy Ruttman, who nobody except maybe you might remember, who won the Indy 500 when he was actually 19 in 1951, is a phenom. Everybody thinks their kid is Jeff Gordon, and most kids at that age have no judgment.
Oh.
And so you have a bunch of young kids and half of them with no talent, it's chaos. And that's the reason the Chili Bowl drew a line at 16.
Sure.
Because they had younger kids and it's chaos anyway, because everybody can lose their mind. But,
But at the turkey night, you'll be able to drive turkey
oh
night.
yeah.
Yeah, this year our goal.
And Chris Agajanian, he was sponsor you. I know he's going to let you drive.
Now, obviously, there's stages of qualifying to get into the main 300 entries.
Oh yeah.
That
No,
qualifying
it's
has to go for.
It's
It's a
5
week
days.
week long of racing.
Every
Week
night
long.
every night has say 80 or 90 entries, and then how you do that night seeds you into either the A race or the B race or the C race or the D race. They have M races.
All the way back to
Two,
M or N.
two, until it gets to the A. The A is the only single one. There's two B's, two. So if you make the C or the D, you've done very well because you've beat 300 people.
Wow.
So most people
Who spent a lot of time in training to get there.
They're usually
Yeah.
some of the best midget drivers in the world.
Yeah.
From Australia, New Zealand. Here.
Australia and
Great upcoming drivers, yeah.
Yeah. Midget racing has turned out so many great drivers because they're harder to drive than a sprint car because power's your friend. Power gets you out of trouble you get yourself into. And yes, you can be going faster and get into trouble, but a midget is so twitchy that if you learn in a midget, you pretty much can drive every kind of race car in the world. And Parnelli Jones and AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti's a Formula One champion. He was a midget driver.
Sure.
Jack Brabham was a Formula One champion. He was the Australian midget champion.
Well, it sounds like it's almost like the 250 GP class was what it used to be. When you ride a 250cc displacement bike, you didn't have the horsepower, so you had to concentrate on getting every single mile an hour at every single corner, the braking and everything. It sounds kind of like that's with the midgets also. It's just you fine tune it down to every little aspect of the handling, and to get around that corner to be able to get good, and that just translates into when you get horsepower, you're just going a lot faster.
What was that?
Pardon
A
me?
few years ago when Ed Carpenter got the pole for the Indy 500.
Yeah.
It was Dario Franchitti or somebody on the microphone, and he said because of all of his dirt track experience and car control, they were able to trim it out and take away some of the downforce.
Right.
Because he had such good car control, and they attributed it from racing midgets. on dirt.
And some of them on motorcycles, like Joe Leonard and A.J. Foyt raced motorcycles for 3 years, which a lot of people don't know.
Well, I mean, there's been so many other motorcycle. Joe Leonard was
Sure.
an AMA champion, and he was the
Right,
national
Grand
driving
National champion. Oh,
Right,
absolutely.
and that's back in the day when national driving champion to me really meant something. Now, it doesn't mean as much. The national IndyCar champion isn't as good a driver as those guys were, because back then they had to run dirt and pavement because the
yeah.
wild dirt tracks were on the point circuit.
Sure.
But Roger Penske talked USAC into getting rid of it because he says Mark Donohue can't win the championship because he can't run dirt. That's not fair. And so they split it. And now dirt guys don't have that opportunity like they did before. And it's kind of sad.
Well, at the expense of the machinery and everything too. Look, you got a car that works really, really, really well for the street. It's not necessarily going to work really, really well. You guys run into that all the time with, I'm sure, with the changes you have to make for the Midget going from asphalt to dirt,
Well,
right?
they're two separate cars,
Ah, of
strictly,
course. Okay.
strictly, dirt and pavement. So
Sure.
they
The 3
have
cars,
their
remember?
individual change-ups, but
He has 2 dirt cars and 1 pavement
Sure.
in the midgets.
But yeah, it used to be that you had one car, and what you're saying is exactly right. You had to change the torsion bars, you had to change the springs, the shocks, and everything. You had to put more brakes. Dirt track, you only have a left front brake, and on pavement you need both brakes in the front.
Sure. Interesting. At what point does all of this racing become profitable? In other words, you get into the black. At what point? I know, because racing is a big hole in the ground. All your money goes into. I've been there many, many years. But at one point, if you continue on, your racing then becomes profitable, not only for the racer but for the car owner. At what stage is that? Is that Indy? Do you have to go all the way to Indy for it to be profitable?
I mean, even the F1 guys, that guy, that he probably brings millions and millions of dollars to the table. So I mean, they've
got their sponsors paying the money. People, they're having their salaries paid, and they're making money with the racing. You know what I mean?
If I would say that there's no form of motorsports where if you didn't have sponsorship and you won every single race in the series, you'd make money. Formula One.
No, I'm talking about including sponsorships. I'm
Okay,
talking
well-
about at what
Well, you
level,
can make-
at what stage.
I actually, when I raced midgets, at the end of my career, I owned my own midget, and I had sponsors. The one, Trent Shoring, that sponsors Courtney. He
Sure.
sponsors me, or he sponsored me, and he sponsors my daughter right now.
Well, at
Sponsors
the end of the
Jerome.
day, your family has to put food on the table. You got to pay the rent on the house, right? And at what point does racing enable you to actually do that? And that, of course, includes sponsors' money coming
No.
in.
Well, what I was going to say is I actually made money because I had
Right.
enough sponsorship.
There you
that
go.
If I didn't tear up a lot of stuff and I didn't have mechanical failures, with the prize money and the sponsor money, I made a profit. And not like Roger Penske or something, but you can do it.
Sure.
But you have to have a lot of luck, and you have to have enough sponsorship.
Right.
Because the prize money won't.
Well, yeah, I wasn't really per se talking about,
Yeah.
not like Sammy's day when he was out racing and that was all the prize money because the sponsors.
there was no
you
sponsor.
didn't-
Yeah.
Sponsors,
I even
at
bought my
best, the
tires.
sponsor's going to give you a set of tires.
Right.
I even bought my tires.
Really?
Yeah. I'll never forget how much you get.
what did they pay to win a race back then?
Well,
say-
it was
let's
a
say a big
decent.
race.
It was a decent. Well, you couldn't compare because of inflation, but I lived a good life. I had good income, better than what
What
other
did it pay to
people.
win a feature at Ascot when the crowd was good?
Well,
You
one
remember?
$460 would be a trophy dash in Maine, and the national was $550.
But then again, we're talking back in 1962, $450 is compared to what, $40,000 now.
I worked a manager as a store, and it was $500 a month as a manager at a Honda motorcycle dealership.
Okay, so a month's wages.
Yeah, it was a month's wages, $500.
So that'd be a good way of looking at it. When you'd win a race,
Yeah.
it was a month's wages.
1947, my father finished second at the LA Coliseum in a midget race. There were 65,000 people there, and he made $3,500 for second. The house cost $7,000 then. So they were racing. Sam Hanks won the race, and he made $7,000 in one night. He could have bought a house. So today's prices of houses, they raced for a lot of money back then. It's different today because it just don't get those crowds.
As Sammy desperately goes for his cell phone.
That's his watch. It's telling him what time it is.
I forgot that my watch talks.
Sammy.
I can't turn it off. It's a nice watch. I talk to it nice. It tells me what time it is.
So, like I said, do we have anything to promote? You're promoting a watch.
Now, she has some really nice sponsors that I think that.
Tell everyone about
the guy that
sponsors.
owns the sprint car too. We haven't mentioned his name, and he does a great job, Steve.
Yeah, this year Trent Shoring is my main sponsor. So he also brings on Ed Pink racing engines, and so they're my main sponsors here. It's helping me back in the sprint car, midget, and Formula car. But also we have Lynn St. James with the Women's Motorsports Foundation. So
Really?
yeah, so I was fortunate enough to be one of the 2 women picked for that. So I was one of the nominees, and so I'm super fortunate to have Lynn with me this year. And she's been great. She's mentored me. We've done some interviews together too, and she's been great help this year, helping me and introduced me to new people. So
outstanding.
At the sports meeting, Lynn St. James came out, and it's packed with all the sports, everybody and journalists, and she made the introduction when Courtney got up, and Courtney does really well in front of the group. I mean, it was.
Courtney's changed a lot since her last Ridin'SoCal.
Yeah.
You were sitting there going, you didn't want me to ask you any questions.
Yeah.
Sonny Nutter is a person that came out of Speedway motorcycle racing. He also did flat track and a lot of motorcycle racing, and then he went into midgets and sprint cars. He's toured back east, and then he retired from racing. And so anyway, Courtney's challenged Sonny Nutter about going around the lap at City of Industry. It's what we call a bull ring. It's a small track where the Speedway racers ride. And so they set the cars up. And
I'm kind of wondering what the win-win for Sonny would be.
She's on one side of the racetrack, and he's on the other side, and whoever catches the other one is the winner. Well, she passed Sonny. So then, Sonny calls me up. He says, tell me a little bit about her. And I said, well, I don't know. That's just pretty good. And so then Bruce Flanders is the announcer, and so he's interviewing Courtney, and so he said, well, what did, Sonny Nutter said something about, he didn't like to get beat by her or something, and then she came back by saying, well, he's going to have to get used to it.
Fighting words for Sonny.
And the crowd, I tell you, there was about 4,000 people there that night and stuff, and the crowd just really loved it. They laughed loud.
Oh, I'll bet.
She's been interviewed by Jay Agajanian at the races at Paris and stuff, and the crowd loves her. She's really good. How
can they not love you? You're 15. You're beautiful. You got the world ahead of you. Your career is on an exponential growth. I mean, what's not to love? And that's hard to soak up for a 15-year-old. It has to be.
Yeah, it is pretty overwhelming at sometimes, but I think my most favorite thing is honestly when I get out of the cars and I see all the fans and they cheer and stuff. That's honestly like what I really love it for, other than just the racing. But I mean, it's all great fun.
Autographs have to be cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Wow.
You see some of the kids that they're probably about 4, 5, 6 years old coming up and asking her for an autograph.
And that's a great responsibility, and I'm sure that you already understand this, but what a responsibility on your shoulders at 15 to be, you're an example of what can happen. And so for all those eyes on you, whether they're younger girls or whether they're older girls, looking at you, you're what can happen. That's heavy.
Yeah, I've never even thought of that, to be honest.
Every time that little 6-year-old, 7-year-old girl comes up to you for an autograph or looks at you, you got to know that they're looking at you as an idol.
Yeah, and I do my best to, keep pretty, not get big head, and, I have these guys that keep me grounded, so, it's pretty great.
From your crew, I can see that you're probably kept pretty grounded.
let me throw something in there real quick. So I was driving with my daughter the other day, just her and I, and we were going to go for a motorcycle ride. I got an old Triumph too, and she's like, "Dad, you're a good motorcycle rider, but I think Courtney's better." So
A couple years ago, when they had the City of Industry Speedway had that European guys in December, with a bunch of guys from the world were there, and Courtney won the junior race that night.
Big championship.
After the race was over at my program, I went down, and and she'd already been driving my car, and I knew her, but I walked up to her and said, "Hey, can I have your autograph?" And she smiled, and she gave me her autograph, and she looked at me, and she said, "Keep this, because it's going to be worth a lot of money."
There you go. Absolutely. Well,
we started to keep her grounded.
Good thing those hats have the adjusters in the back to make them bigger.
The head getting bigger.
Ted Kennedy is a sports journalist, and he's writing about her a lot. And this one time, she won the main event in the speedway bikes and stuff, and so he wrote up a story, and there was a photo made. And so in today's Sacco coverage under Riders, it's a digital publication, under Riders, she's right there in the top, putting her helmet on and is telling about her.
That $5,000 Arai carbon fiber helmet that she wears.
At that time, it was the motocross helmet.
He's pointing at the picture of the helmet.
She's got the carbon fiber helmet now. It's Arai's top of the line. That helmet sold for $25,000. Not that particular one, but
Right.
one like it. There was about 6 months in development of that helmet. It's a carbon fiber helmet like no other in the world. And they sold for $25,000 to the Formula One car racers, and then it came down to $15,000, and it came down to $5,000, and it's stopped at $4,000 at this point.
$4,000 helmet.
$4,000
Does it
That's
drive the
amazing.
car?
Really, no kidding.
Almost.
When she got upside down, well, maybe I shouldn't have said this part. When she got upside down in Paris, they had raised the seat up, and so in the roll cage above, there's only this much of a gap between the helmet and her head, and so when she got upside down and landed hard, you stretch, everything stretches out, and her head kind of touched the ground pretty hard.
Yeah, Sammy just told me about that story the other day. He no headache, no nothing?
Yeah, no, actually, I was in the lead, and on the last lap, I flipped over and turned one. And it was funny because the next day we shot right out of there after that happened, and I think we confused a few people. They thought I was mad or something, but we had to get in the car and go straight to Buttonwillow because the next day I was racing my Formula Mazda, and next day I got the win, and I set a track record, so it was...
Well, obviously, no damage there.
With a headache.
Well, you know, on that note, Courtney, you've got a hell of a future. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank all of you for being on the show. Sammy, of course, is my sidekick. So, but really, thank you for being here, and I can't wait to come and watch you and just see you teach everybody how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, thanks for having me and everybody else. Good time, as always.
All right. Well, Southern California Motorcycles, really the show is based from there, and I have to be the proud owner of it. So if you want to see this program or listen to it on the podcast, go to SoCalMotorcycles.com and just go on the front page and you can see it there. Also, we do a lot of events here from Southern California Motorcycles. So on next weekend, July 23rd, we're doing the Brea Baptist Church. They're having a car show, and we'll have a booth there. Come by and say hi. That's a great event. And also, we've just gone and remodeled our Suzuki dealership, Southern California Suzuki, and it's huge now. It's probably the biggest Suzuki dealer around. I know it is. And come by and see us. We're having Suzuki. We're calling it our grand reopening. We'll have demo rides on Suzukis, which by not too many dealers, in fact, I don't know of any that give demo rides on Suzukis. You can come and demo the entire lineup. So that is on August 6th. So there again, thanks everyone for being here. I'm Tom Hicks. We'll be back with you next week.